Good afternoon. Yes, sir.
बैठिए बैठिए.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Anka Bint Irshad. I was born and brought up in Nawakadal, Srinagar. I did my schooling from Kashmir Awad Educational Institute till class 12th grade. Post that, I went to Delhi University for pursuing my bachelor's. I've done my bachelor's from St. Stephen's College, University of Delhi in Economics and Political Science. Post that, I've been preparing for this. This is my first attempt at this exam.
And you have made it to the interview stage and hopefully you will cross it.
I hope so, sir.
Any special interest in civil services?
Definitely, sir. So, sir, I think I have this tendency where I wanted to serve public at large, and I thought my desires to work for the public and the stability that I would get via this examination and getting there would actually be beneficial for me, and it would serve both the purposes.
How would you like to serve your downtown area if you are tomorrow given charge or you become a deputy commissioner of Srinagar?
Sir, there are quite a few problems that we see persistently in downtown area. One being overcrowded. It's very overcrowded place and it's not properly planned scheme. So I think that is one area where I would want to play a role. Secondly, I see there is a major sanitation problem which leads to waterlogging even when there is like a little rainfall there. So that is a major problem. I think that is where I would want to intervene and make sure that
What is the difference between sanitation, drainage and sewerage?
Sanitation, drainage, and
Sewerage.
okay. So sewerage is essentially whatever waste product comes out of the households, that is sewerage. And like drainage, in drainage, we essentially do not have the proper separation. And also the departments which, departments which are responsible for all of them are separate. So I think that is where the distinction is.
So how sanitation?
Sanitation, sir, I'm very sorry about it. I just forgot to mention about the sanitation. But sanitation is not just at the community level. It would be at an individual level too. If you see at my individual level or anybody's level, you would see sanitation plays a major role. So I think that is where the distinction is.
So how is solid waste management being handled in Srinagar city?
In Srinagar, if you see, especially if I talk about the downtown area, we see there are open drains. And unfortunately, we do not see a lot of them getting treated water, like the solid waste being treated, which unfortunately leads to a lot of problem. And there is a lot of cloggage of drains that you see every now and then, leading to a lot of problems. So I think treatment plants need to be, even if they are there, we need to make them more better
Get
and
some
more efficient.
clarity from solid waste and this sewerage and drainage issue.
Solid waste. Okay.
You're just intermingling them.
Okay, sir. I'm afraid then I would not be able to
What
put it up.
was your optional subject?
My optional subject, political science and international relations,
Political
sir.
science. And what are major geopolitical issues right now in the world?
Right now, we see there is a entire geopolitical hotspot going on everywhere in the world. We see the major being Russia-Ukraine. Number two, Israel-Palestine issue. Then we see the refugee crisis that is there. India being at the receiving end of it, and many more, sir.
Sir,
You are from the political science department,
Yes.
isn't it? Sir asked you a very pertinent question about the international issues that are facing us.
Yes.
Can you explain to me what is this Palestine, Gaza, and Israel problem?
Yes, sir. So, sir, Palestine-Israel problem, it's a very deep-rooted problem. It's a historical, cultural, and a religious problem intermingled, and we see it at a world platform. So essentially, there is an ethnicity problem, the religious problem, and all the elements that play an important role there. We see that the major contestation is about the Jews claiming Israel to be the Holy Land and claiming their settlements to be there. So they want to establish it as a Jewish establishment. But we also see that like the Muslims who are already there from the time immemorial, who have been there in like the Palestine, staying there. Now the settlements are being created by the Israelis so that they could make sure that they have their settlement there and essentially create the state that they envision. That is the main contestation.
How do you see India in this whole conflict?
Sir, according to the Honorable Minister of External Affairs, Honorable Jay Shankar, he says India has a very clear-cut has put up a very clear statement, and it supports two-nation solution.
So on one side we are with Israel, on the other side we are supporting the two-nation theory, isn't it?
Sir, I would say that India has played a very critical role. It has definitely provided a lot of humanitarian support to the Palestinians. It has helped them in manifold ways.
Palestine is recognized by India as a nation.
Palestine, it definitely, so when it support, so essentially Palestine in United States, unfortunately, is not seen as a nation state, but India definitely considers two-state solution, but it does not consider.
What is this concept of, you use the word nation state, what is it?
Sir, a nation state is a very, very important and like a central concept to the discipline of political science. So nation states, like we have, I can, if I'm allowed, I can just explain it with the help of an example.
Yeah.
If you see, if we take a country, in a country we have different states, and like we have the state overpowering them. So, but in a world politics and a platform, in an international platform, we have so many elements, and each nation state have its own sovereignty, territory, geography, and citizens. That is how we define nation state in terms of the political science.
So what is the federal structure?
Federal structure, sir. Yes, sir. Federal structure essentially is how we divide power between the union and its subsidiary parts. It could be at the local level or probably at the state level.
So you were asked that if you are given an opportunity to serve in Srinagar,
Yes, sir.
how will you change downtown Srinagar?
Yes, sir.
So one thing you said that there are lots of problems, congestion is there and
Yes.
this. But you didn't give us a solution.
Solutions.
What is the solution to make it decongested? And if you
Decongestion-
decongest it,
Huh.
you have to do something
Yes.
radical.
Yes, sir.
So what is that, and what problems you are
Sir,
anticipating?
I would say that firstly, we have to take a stakeholder approach. We have to make sure that the people about whose life we are about to change, we take them into the consideration. And if we take them into the consideration, take them on board with the policymakers, then we can actually frame a very good solution. Like we have the concept of vertical housing. We can actually have that, but we have to see if the people who are already living there, are they willing to go for it? So we have to keep all those things into the consideration. I think vertical housing is one of the way of decongestion, making colonies and housing establishments in the different parts of the city which are actually coming up.
Is
in the
relocation
area.
of some people from the downtown a possibility?
Sorry, sir.
Relocation of the people.
Relocation is a possibility. We have seen that in Khanyar when the roads were being widened and the plots were allotted to the people of Khanyar to other parts of the city. So that is definitely a very good option.
So what should relocation become? How can relocation become successful?
Relocation becoming
Because relocation means you are removing people from their habitat, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So where they live is not simply a house. You know, it also impacts their living,
Yes, sir.
livelihood.
Yes, sir.
And once you want to relocate people, what should be in place so that relocation becomes acceptable?
Sir, I think there are 2-3 factors that are predominantly important in case of relocation. Firstly, the place where you are relocating them has to be habitable in a sense that it is connected to the other parts of the city. If you do not have the proper facilities like sanitation, transportation, and other electricity, if you have all those amenities available there, I do not see a problem for people relocating there. That is how we can actually do that. But second part of your question, which you said about the livelihoods, that is a very, very crucial part, because a lot of people who are inhabitants of downtown have their livelihood sometimes associated with your locality, as in you see a lot of people who are involved in pottery, having the small potter's shop, or like people vegetable sellers, or like small shops selling confectionery items or stuff. So that is something that you also need to take into the consideration and make sure that you give them enough opportunity to avail those things also.
What is one word used for this particular thing? Relocation and
Rehabilitation.
rehabilitation. There you are, correct.
Beta, what does ANCA stand for? Is it ANCA or UNCA?
Anka.
What does it stand for?
So sir, Anka has 2 meanings. One, it means the rearest.
The
Rearest, Nayab.
Theek.
And the second one, it translates to a mystical bird who has who soars up very high in the sky.
UNCA.
Anka.
That is ANCA or UNCA?
Anka.
Okay. You come from SRGanj.
That is the post officer.
Okay. poster. What does SRN stand for?
It is essentially, it's also called as Maharaji Bazaar, which is
Maharaji Bazaar is somewhere else.
Maharajganj.
It is Maharajganj.
I'm afraid, sir, I do not know.
Okay, this was a market established in the time of
Yes,
Dogra
sir.
rulers.
I know that.
Can you give me a hint who established it? Who is
It was one of the Sikh rulers by the name
Dogra ruler?
Dogra rulers by the name Ranjit Singh. Ranjit Singh. Ranbir or
Ranjit comes from
I'm sorry.
Sikh.
I'm sorry. Ranbir.
Sikh क्या बोलते हैं dynasty, and then subsequently it is from
I'm sorry.
Dogra. It is Ranbir. That's the word Ranbir. Sri
Ranbir.
Ranbir Ganj. So market established in 1871. ठीक है? Because it will they will ask. There's a tendency people ask.
I will
them,
definitely
ठीक
look
है?
into it, sir.
Keep a view on that. And there was a wazir who established. His name was Wazir Pannu. I will not go into it because you are not comfortable with that. So your subjects are political science. Okay. What is Indian ancient political thought? You know about it?
Yes, sir.
Who are the forebearers of the political thought?
Kautilya, sir.
And second,
Kautilya is there. We have
there is a second one also.
Manu.
Okay.
Yes. Kautilya wrote Arthashastra. Arthashastra is what, as if we, in the Western political thought, we have Machiavelli's Prince. In Indian political thought, it is very much equivalent to Arthashastra. So Arthashastra gives us the concept of how the state should be governed, how the elements of the state, that is the king, the rulers, the different other elements, the foreign policy, how it all should be managed. So it essentially gives us a theory which encapsulates all of them.
What about Manu?
Manu also gave the concept of political, like it was the political thought that he came up with, but it was more oriented towards the religion, but not. It does not give as much as clarity as the Arthashastra gives.
What about classes? Castes. What are the caste system in Manus and
Yes, sir. Also, yes, sir. I forgot
that was
it, but
that
yes.
part of that?
Yes, that definitely, sir. That he gives a classification as to how the different caste originated and how he actually says that how it is perpetuating and how he justifies it also. Like he gives the concept as to how from the head we have like the different castes that emanated from the different parts of the body, which is actually given in the Purushats, which gives the holistic idea about from the head we have Brahmins, and then we have the warrior class coming from the shoulders, the Kshatriyas essentially, and then we have the Vaishnus who are essentially the merchant class, and then unfortunately the bitter reality, which is the Shudras who he claims to be come from the foot of.
What Manu has what is his book name? What he has written?
Manusmriti, yes.
So then you are from St. Stephen's. When it was established?
It was in 1861. 1861, way before independence.
81 or 61?
Probably it.
No. Who was the founder of this institution?
So Samuel Scott, sir. Yes.
India recently has an international issue with a neighboring country, Maldives.
Yes.
What was the issue, and how are the relations at present in between India and Maldives?
So essentially, sir, there was the election that happened and elected President Muizzu as the head of the state. Essentially, it was the entire campaign of that president was based on India Out campaign. It was India Out campaign. Also, we know for a matter of fact that India has essentially been an all-weather friend to Maldives, which reflects in different activities like the drinking water, which unfortunately Maldives does not have access to. It gives them the drinking water. Number two, we have the training to the personals to them. It also helped them with that. Also, when there was a flooding of that area, India also provided the humanitarian support to them. In addition to that, sir, there was something else that was there also, which was in terms of food. Not only food and food amenities, and also providing them with the training for job skilling. Even in the institutions of India, we provide them with the opportunities to avail certain skilling and upskilling activities. At present, the relationship, I would not say are sour, but I would say they are not as good as they were in the regime that was before the Muizu, because Muizu's government, as they claim, is more tilted towards our western, our eastern neighbor, essentially China. So that is how it is.
Okay, thank you.
What do you know about sovereignty?
Sovereignty is a very important virtue of a nation state. It means that you are in a position to take the decisions for yourself, that nobody affects your decisions. So we have internal sovereignty and we have external sovereignty. External sovereignty would entail that nobody else, like no other nation state, like if we live in India, nobody is going to decide it for ourselves. No international organization can change the decisions that we would want to take. So that is what I
What's
understand.
the difference between sovereignty and suzerainty?
Suzerainty and sovereignty. Can I please get a moment to think about it? So suzerainty essentially was related with the princely states when they were asked about, like, princely states were asked to suzerain. I'm afraid, sir, I would not be able to.
On the point, you're almost on the point.
Yes, I am.
What is recognition, international recognition of states?
International recognition of states. In what context, sir?
In the context of recognizing any new country. For instance, taking the context of Palestine. In that
context, sir, you have to have your own first element.
Its recognition is recognition by other members.
Recognition by other members. We would say, like, if United Nations, if United Nations agrees to the
So is it recognition by United Nations or by other members?
by other members, sir, because sometimes there could be an instance where you could be recognized by United Nations, but you would not be recognized as a state by other
What is
countries.
the deciding factor of international recognition?
I think, sir, it's a state of anarchy that we see in the international order, and it is the power relations that determine whether or not you would be recognized at the international fora.
Can you critically say something about UNO and the other organizations and their role in contemporary political scenarios?
United Nations organization definitely has to be appreciated, to say at least. It has definitely played an important role. As you said, there are pros and there are cons. There are certain.
You are asked to make a critical comment.
Okay, sir. Sir, I would say that we have been in a position to avert wars, yes, but unfortunately there have been wars that have occurred, but UNO has essentially played a very important and crucial role in rehabilitation and rebuilding of that. And through its peacekeeping operations, it has genuinely worked a lot in so many war-torn states. So that is something that is appreciable. But regarding the importance that it holds in the contemporary times, this is a little debatable, wherein the nation states would not always want their sovereignty to be compromised and meddled with by the other international organizations. We have seen that, sir.
In the context of not referring the matters of Israel and Palestine to International Criminal Court of Justice. So what's your take on that?
International Court of Justice, sir, though it has, though the judgments of
International Criminal Court.
International Criminal Court. International Criminal Court and International Court of Justice are there is a distinction between the two, as far as I understand. I have a little understanding of it. In the criminal court, we can actually, we can have individuals and we can actually hold them liable in the criminal court, but not in the International Court of Justice, which
International Criminal
International Criminal Court.
Against war crimes.
Yes, a genocide convention that was.
No, I'm not in context to Israel and Palestine issue.
Okay, it's
So has the matter taken by International Criminal Court of Justice?
international.
If not, why?
Sir, International Criminal Court, as far as I remember, the International Court of Justice, which is a principal organ, or probably I might be wrong, it took it up when South Africa essentially was there, and they essentially presented the Genocide Convention, to which both of them.
That's a history now.
Yes.
I'm talking about contemporary world.
You cannot take it up until both the states consent to it or are essentially a party to a convention. You cannot. You cannot
It's
do
not a
it.
dispute between International Court of Justice. These are war crimes.
Yes.
For which the jurisdiction lies with them. So I wanted you to make some critical observations on UNO. You have any critical, or you see it in goody-goody?
Sir, I would say nothing in this world is a hunky-dory. Everything has its loop sides as well. And I have We have seen that how the UNSC reforms have been there on the table for so long, but unfortunately,
As a student of political science, how you see international law? Is it really a law or not?
international
Law.
international law. International law, I would say yes, it is there. We have seen a lot of environmental conventions and environmental regulations that have had the enforceability by the nation states. So genuinely, I would say yes. We have Paris Convention, we have SDGs that we have to fulfill by 2030. Even if we would not be able to touch the entirety of it, but to an extent, we would be able to achieve it. If we have, sir, if we have ratified to certain conventions, then genuinely we would have to agree to it. We do not have
What are
option.
the sanctions?
Sanctions. About
Generally, what does a sanction mean?
sir, sanctions essentially are, we can define it as something. Sanctions are something that a country puts on another and inhibits their trade or commerce and the relations with them.
So, what are the sanctions in international law?
International sanctions in international law, we can see it in the context of the United States of America as to how it has put sanctions on the trade and on so many aspects with other countries which it does not have good relations with.
So, it seems that you feel that only US is running the world?
Uh,
It is for the time you are naming US.
No, sir. So we live in a world where we see USA definitely was a hegemon where we see there was a unipolar world. But now the world realities are changing. We are moving and heading towards a multipolar world. If in the security sense we would have to speak, or in the economic sense, for at least it would be bipolar world where we see US and the rising China. And then in other contexts, we see a multipolar world where...
Am I right in saying that these all organizations are run by the most powerful states, and they are dictating terms on the least powerful states, and that is the critique that I would say lies in this. So what is your take on that?
I would say there is this one theory that Robert Dahl says. There is this concept that we saw, the law of oligarchy, and we see this elitist concept that appears there by the Moscow, which says that everywhere you go, you see that the power is essentially in the hands of few. And this is true not only for the nation states, but also in the international fora, where we see like certain few big players essentially play a critical role in assessing what the decisions would be and how it, in a sense, it would have to accentuate the benefits of those countries, and it would be then the decisions would be taken.
Can you critically say something about CTBT?
About
CTBT, you know what CTBT?
yes, sir, comprehensive test ban.
What's that? And can you say what in essence is that?
Yes, sir. Comprehensive test ban theory essentially was that there would be no more testing because now P5 has the nuclear arsenal and now nobody else would be allowed to have that. But if you see it critically, if they can have it, you cannot create a hegemony in the world where you can decide it for the others. It is kind of compromising the sovereignty. And I would say definitely India did a very good job, or other countries who did not sign it. It was for them to decide whether they would want to go for it or not.
What about the countries who want to become nuclear powers? Are you not disarming them from being nuclear powers?
Sir, as they say, nuclear arms are just for the show and not for the use. Because even when you have it's essentially it acts as a deterrent, I would say, sir. It's a deterrent, essentially, where the other country, even if you're a small power, it's a good thing that if you have a nuclear arsenal, I would definitely and vehemently support disarmament, but it would have to be done even by the states that have the most of it. So I would say, genuinely, it has to be done from the top and not from the bottom.
All right. Do you know who Noam Chomsky is?
Yes, sir.
How would you rate him as a scholar?
Sir, I have this one thing that he has said. There are a lot of things that he has said.
How would you rate him? Just stick to that.
I think, sir, he's a great scholar, to say at least. His book, Manufacturing Consent, explains a lot of stuff which actually defines how the narratives are being created in the present-day world order, and how when he says that social media is a double-edged sword, how that is something that we see.
So you consider his opinions as legit?
Rigid, I would say.
As legit?
Legit, yes, sir, definitely.
So according to him, the nuclear war is an existential threat to humanity right now.
So nuclear war is not just for show. Nuclear arsenals are not for show. He says that we have these two existential threats to humanity. One is climate change, the other is nuclear war. So there is a potentiality in this as well.
Sir, as he says it, there is definitely a lot of the aura that he creates around him. Definitely, he would have a lot of substance in the saying also. But I would say, sir, definitely, as he says that this is a threat to it, but the use of it is a little shaky.
Mhm. Recently, the leader of Russia had a comment on that, whether or not he will be using nuclear weapons. So, what do you know about that?
Sir, I think all these act as a talk show, but a leader like him speaking that on the World Fora gives a message that how disarmament should be something that should be on our priority list, but from the top-down approach, as I mentioned earlier. But he saying this gives a very wrong signal to the world. But for a matter of fact, he also knows that if he uses them, the West is not going to keep looking, and they would also retaliate with the same, and unfortunately the entire humanity would be wiped out, which is...
You've mentioned Israel Gaza a lot of times, and you said that it was Jews that wanted to create a homeland for themselves. So are there only Jews living under Israeli establishment, or are there Muslim Palestinians also?
There are Muslim, of course, like in the mainland Gaza, or like where the establishments have been created. We have seen there are Palestinian Muslims or the Arab Muslims living there also.
Okay. So recently there was this controversy that Israel was going for covert operations in Iran. It is also alleged that India does the same in Pakistan. So do you think that we should tackle China by these covert operations only?
The stand that we have with China, I think we have to, as much as we can do, the things by bringing the stakeholders on the negotiation table. I don't think those activities...
My question is just about covert operations.
I would not say it is a viable option, sir.
So do you agree to it that we do covert operations in Pakistan?
I would say no, sir, but definitely to wipe out terrorism in any form or shape must be the responsibility of the entire humanity. We must condemn it in all forms and shapes.
Do you think that the world is becoming more religious day by day?
More religious, I would say. Using the term more religious would be a little rigid, but being more sentimental and driven by religion would be something that we are seeing in the present day world order.
Okay, so India becoming more religious, don't you think that is a threat to our secular fabric?
India is a secular country. The secular fabric, unfortunately, as Noam Chomsky puts it, it is the manufacturing consent. We have, unfortunately, the WhatsApp university going on. We have access to social media, and the messages and the videos that are being circulated over them, most of them are not even factual. There is no fact-checking mechanism that checks the authenticity of them, creating the notion about the certain community in a negative way. It has very bad repercussions in a long run.
Because social media is it's going to stay there.
Yes, sir.
And you will face problems as an administrator tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
So how will you suggest to,
I think, sir, the Singapore model, where they essentially puts people from different communities, make them live together, and at the intellectual and the institutional level, we can actually make people meet, discuss, talk. Because when you meet people, you be friends with them, you talk to them, they understand who you are, who the real you is, and
do
it is not.
Do you think social media should be regulated? And can it be regulated?
Regulation of social media is a very difficult job, but to an extent, we would have to have something that would at least regulate certain elements of it. It is an essentiality.
Why is it difficult? We can stop, fake things. The government can move in regulation. We can identify those who have fake accounts, isn't it?
But sir, that would be a kind of an attack on our freedom to speech and expression, because sometimes some elements of the government might use it for furthering their own interests and like propagating things which are beneficial for them.
Now, do you think that say in banking and all services, you have a KYC, know your customer. Do you think for social media also there should be some sort of a KYC so that we know exactly who is this person who is making the statement?
Sir, unfortunate reality is that the decentralized nature of the social media makes it very difficult for social media regulators to have the KYC kind of situation. And when if you talk about Instagram, for instance, you would have to give once you have to register yourself as a user on Instagram, you have to give your age and a lot of information about yourself. But most of the times we forge it, because before 18 years you cannot use it. But we see a lot of significant population of our country using it who are below 18.
So that's what I'm saying. That is where the problem lies. There are fake accounts.
Yes, sir.
People have multiple accounts,
Yes, sir.
which are not.
Yes.
Male appears as a female,
Yes.
female appears as a
Yes.
male sometimes. So if the KYC is brought in the social media, do you think that is a solution that will to a great extent reduce the fake news and make people accountable for whatever they put on the social media?
Sir, if that is possible, that would be a very welcome step on that. Definitely, it would be a very welcome step. It would regulate it to a greater extent and would make sure that there are the fake profiles and the fake personalities or people who honey trap people via their accounts. It would be regulated to a greater extent, but that is something that we have to sketch out in a very comprehensive way as to how we can go for the KYC in this domain.
One last question. You've studied political science,
Yes,
right?
sir.
If you were made a dictator of India for one day, what 3 things would you change immediately?
Sir, I would say the dictator word does not augur very well with me. I would not prefer being a dictator of a country. I would always want democracy to hail. But yes, if unfortunately that has to happen someday, it would be something to essentially get over the dictatorship and re-establish the democracy back.
Nice.
बहुत बढ़िया. All the best. Yes, yes, yes.
Please don't use words like with the panel. ठीक है. Secondly, while talking about Palestine, आपने कहा कि unfortunately US does not recognize Palestine. So by saying that आप अपना bias बता रहे हैं, ठीक है ना? तो एक तो वो second चीज हुआ. Third, मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि आप थोड़ा distract हो जाते हो. आप you don't hit the bullseye. जैसे मैंने आपको बोला कोवर्ट ऑपरेशन पे बात करो, कोवर्ट ऑपरेशन पे बात करके खत्म करो उसको. आप इतना कुछ फैला देते हो, उसके बाद
उससे फिर बाकी क्वेश्चंस निकल आते हैं. जो भी पूछा जाए बस वही
हिट द बुलseye. एग्जैक्टली वही जो पूछा जा रहा है. बाकी ठीक है.
All the best.
Thank you, sir.
All the best.
Thank you.
All the very best.